Magandang gabi, good evening. Sabado na naman, from 7 to 8, naririto kami, Senior Citi Kuwentuhan. Brought to you by ENet Philippines, Senior sa Panahon ng COVID, Lapis SeeSaw Channel, at Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement or PRRM. And mula pa 2020, kami po ang naging regular co-host ninyo, si Torre at ang aking kasambahay,
Si Tita Girly.
Pero maraming salamat po kay Santos at kay Berna Osorio na sumasalit sa amin bilang mga co-host nitong Senior Citi Kuwentuhan. Sa episode po natin ngayong gabi ng Senior City, ang tatalakayin natin ay may kaugnayan sa Niyog, coconuts. Bakit? Kasi ang Agosto po ay buwan ng Niyog. And ang nangyari po sa PRRM noong nakaraang Miyerkules, August 6, nagkaroon ng public forum at before the public forum ay may workshop tungkol sa iba't ibang usapin ng Niyog. So ngayon pong gabi, dalawa ang tatalakayin namin sa introduction and the rest po will be a report, video at saka sounds na maraming salamat kay Andy Javier ng PRRM na siya ang nag-shoot at nag-edit. Matagal na ho kaming nag-uusap dito tungkol sa Niyog, no? At ako po bilang PRRM kasama po kami ng mga organisasyon ng mga magnyonyog, yung nagmarcha para i-push yung batas ng sa Coco Levy. At meron namang kasamahan ako dati sa seminaryo, si Charlie Avila, na siya naman ay ang presidente ng tinatawag ay CONFED, isa ring asosasyon ng mga magnyonyog. Nag-uusap kami lagi. Sabi ko, Charlie, mas marami kang alam kasi naging PCA administrator po siya. Bagamat ako, naging board rin naman ng PCA. Sabi ko, bihira ang makakapagsulat. Ano nga ba talaga nangyari sa Niyog sa Pilipinas mula sa kasaysayan, sa batas at iba pa? Sabi ko, sulat ka naman ng maikli. Ang tawag ko ay for popular education. Aba, ang bilis. Siguro wala pag isang buwan, pinadala sa akin 60 pages. Tapos sabi niya, gawin co-author tayo. Hindi, ikaw ang author eh. Pero susulat ako ng afterword. Gusto niya forward, pero afterword na lang. At yun ay nilansad namin noon. At ang tawag po ay Philippine Coconut Story. Tapos ang subtitle ay Tragedy and Hope. Naku, parang may problema pero may pag-asa. Ngayon, nitong August 6, sa at ng mga kaibigan niya, gawa naman kayo ni Early ng Tagalog para maintindihan. Kasi masalimuot ang usapin ay English pa. Double problem. So sa Tagalog, kasi si Charlie Hoy Bisaya, kami na raw. Sabi ko, kailangan kong katulungin si Girly. Dahil nga, maliban sa Tagalusena yan, ako, Mindoro Tagalog, pang Quezon Tagalog. At higit sa lahat si Girly po ay anak ng kauna-unahang Philippine Coconut Authority Administrator na tawag namin Tatay Iba, si Cesar Villariba. Kung nagawa rin namin po ang translation at naging double book launch nung Miyerkules ng hapon.
Okay.
Ang translation po, sabi, anong title? Gawin na natin Niyog at Pilipinas, Noon, Ngayon, at Bukas. Ngayon, magsimula po tayo sa mga panimulang obserbasyon at refleksyon ng aking kabiyak, kasambahay at co-translator ng Coconut Story, si Girly Villariba. Take it away!
Una po, ang coconut ay hindi nut. Anong tawag natin sa Niyog na bunga niya?
Drup yata.
Drup.
Hindi
Parang
fruit. Drup.
Hindi siya nut. So
Anyway,
wala tayong masasabi na hindi nut ang coconut. Anyway, pampagising lang po yun. Kasi baka inaantok na kayo.
balik kay Girly.
Kasi nung binabasa po namin para isa din sa Tagalog, ang dami pala pong nagawa para sa coconut industry. At lahat po ay in the name of the coconut farmers. Pero pag inisa-isa na po natin ang nangyayari sa napakalaking puhunan na ibinigay ng mga magniniyog sa coconut industry para pong talagang may trahedyang nabubuo sa aking kamalayan. Pero at the same time, dahil napakalaki pong kayamanan ang niyog, ang coconut industry, nagkakaroon po tayo ng pag-asa na balang araw, sana po ay guminhawa ang buong magninyog kasi napakalaki pong tulong ng coconut development.
At sa hapon po, nagkaroon ng forum na pinagtulungan po ng PRRM bilang Secretariat ng Kilos Magninyog at ng CONFED. At sinabi namin, gawin natin itong parang tinig ng magninyog. Pero hindi lamang ng magsasakang magninyog, kundi pati manggagawa sa nyog, kundi pati ang mga negosyante sa nyog, kundi ang maging researchers, policy advocates, kahit government officials, tinig lang kasi nga ang problema, hindi napapakinggan. Ano ba talaga ang sentimiento ng magninyog para yung kanilang kinabukasan, ang kanilang karapatan at mga posibilidad ay mapakinggan at bigyan ng tamang suporta both ng government at ng general public dito sa Pilipinas at sa labas ng Pilipinas. Kaya po pakinggan natin ang tinig ng magninyog.
We're very pleased that this will happen for three reasons. The first one is, you know very well, si Abby would know that, PCA would know that, you know, the whole advocacy on economic issues, coconut issues from political groups, non-government groups, civil society groups, has been a very, to say the least, tumultuous and contentious issue. So many ideas and all that. No? And so there are different groups that work together, but especially since the passage of the levy law, which now the president says, because we amended, we all agreed, hey, let's get together. We have to temper our dreams, our aspirations with what is possible within our time, within our capacity, and with whatever partners we have in government or in business. So this, in a way, is an effort, one of many moves we're trying to bring together. And that's why we chose explicitly the term, not organization, but simply tinig ninyo. Why? Like I was telling Melvin the other, just this, when people leave government, you know, they tell them, oh, you're leaving government, public service, you're going back to the private sector. And I said, no, my interpretation is, you leave public service and you will rejoin the sovereign citizen. In a democracy, the citizens are sovereign in principle. But you can be sovereign only if there is sufficient unity, organization, and voice. Otherwise, the public servant will say, when I serve, there are so many ideas, there are so many views. Can't you get your act together? And so again, this is part of that effort. Because in the end, next year, for those who don't know Philippine history, we are going to celebrate 40 years after the restoration of formal democracy in 1986. And PRRM, which was established in the Philippines in 1952, just after the insurgency was crushed and defeated, came in and saying, can't we do rural reconstruction so that there will be no reason for another insurgency? And in the early years of PRRM, they formulated a fourfold program called literacy against ignorance, health against disease, livelihood against poverty, and self-governance against civic inertia. And that last one got translated to a slogan, building democracy from the bottom up. And in that period, with the help of allies, including Manuel Panahon and others, PRRM was one of those who lobbied for the successful passage of the Barrio Charter Act, where the barangay, our lowest unit of government, instead of being originally appointive, became elective. And when we turned 50 in 2002, one of the pioneers, we asked, what great achievement, if at all, we are in those years? So, sir, we were able to make barangay leadership elective, not just appointive. Then he says, in the next 50 years, the challenge is to make the elective effective. Which is the challenge also in the 4 years of EDSA. People are saying that maybe the focus in the Philippines is too messy. There is not enough room for decisive, strong leadership and all that. No? And so we're saying, how do we maximize the possibilities in a democratic system with all its challenges, but arrive at effective governance, participatory governance, but more important, that translates into the benefit of the lives of ordinary people. And although I've come primarily from an NGO, one of the third things I learned when we were on the run because I served in government briefly for 3 years as TESDA during the time of President Estrada. The three things I learned from 6 people in government, and you NGOs, every meeting you start afresh. Thinking. Government is a government of laws, not persons. So, no matter how good your views, if there is no enabling law, makuha ka pa. You must have a law. If there is no law, make one. If the law will take too long, make an ego. And that is part of the challenge. What are the laws? Because that becomes strength of government. And that's why there's discussion about amending. Secondly, they said, well, you can have laws. Congress in the Philippines has a great history of very progressive social legislation. They said, how come they have so many when it's dominated by the elite? Someone said, because they don't intend to implement them anyway, because the laws are subject to the availability of funds. And so many unfunded laws. So they said, sir, enabling law, funds, targeted, identified, not future. And then third, we have a slogan of whole of government, whole of society. Let's make sure there is a focused unit in charge. Even if you do alliances, interest, there should be a lead. And secondly, within that lead, there should be a lead person. So those are some of the things that is in my mind. And this whole project started very consciously. Charlie has been a longer voice on coconut than I. We were both in the Federation of Free Farmers, but that time ours was rising, or we were not into coconut at all. But then he's been talking, has other issues. I told him once, Charlie, a lot of people that but very few of them will really read the laws, very few will read thick books. Do something that is more accessible. A thin book for popular education on coconut. No? And because I've been thinking of it much longer, in 2 months, he gave me a 60-page manuscript. And that became the book we launched sometime a few months back. And Abel was the one who graciously went and asked him who funded it, how they got it. But anyway, we just a few copies. Then afterwards, typical, yeah, but it's in English, even if it's accessible. How will farmers read them? So please translate it to Tagalog. Since Charlie is Bisaya, is from Leyte, and I am Tagalog, so since I let and translate. I needed help. I'm very happy that when the church decided that I will not be a legal priest anymore, but become a lay person. So therefore, I can get married legally. And my wife is from Quezon, but more important, that means he is the daughter, the first administrator of the BCA, Cesar Villariba. So we are the co-translator. With a little help from ChatGPT. So we hope that's the background. Now, this particular forum should have happened before the SONA. Because the idea is the zona will the president will set directions on the important. We thought, why can't we gather, raise our voice so that the president can respond? But then climate change, the weather events. But in a sense, good, because then he has already responded. He has already said, hey, the law is there. We have to follow it. But if it is changing, let's amend it. That is part of the discussion this afternoon. Secondly, we said, okay, coconut farmers are at the core, but there are also coconut workers. What about coconut entrepreneurs? Not the small, but even bigger ones. What about researchers and advocates? Hold on. What about public? We need a bigger constituency. The farmers are at the core, but we need a much broader and bigger constituency, especially now that it has become really a very important part of any future dream of the Philippines for a just and sustainable development. And so we said, if we try to organize formally, then we run into trouble. So we decided on the theme on it, tinig and mabilog. Voice namin. We are not launching an organization. We're not forming a coalition. We are just creating a venue for our voices to come together so that we can articulate the sentiments of the different stakeholders. And so, if you notice, you know some, you know most of the others, you don't know most of the others. So, this afternoon is really quite an interesting mix of gathering. We have many veterans, campaigners from the coconut farmers, from NGOs, some business people, we have people in different government positions, including local government. So, it will not be the only one, but we hope, depending on the evaluation, the process, because right now, it's a good time because the government itself, represented by the president, has already set an initial positive tone. In other words, we will not be seen as against banging our head against the wall, trying to ask for the impossible. It's just saying, what changes need to be made? Let's make them, according to our own current system. And that is the spirit of this afternoon. And that gave us a more substantial reason that simply inviting you to a book note. So, but if you also want to give them for others, of course, we invite you to. But beyond that, really the problem in the Philippines in general, we know this. How do we communicate not just what needs to be done, but when can we agree? We will always do many things. Which are the parts we can agree on that are doable under the actual existing conditions of the players within. I guess that comes from getting older. I think I'm the oldest in the room. In case anyone wants to ask, I am older than the Philippine Republic, which was established in 1946. I was born in 1943. So I am 82. Why are you like looking so good? I drink PCO every day. Yeah, very true. It's not the only reason. It's the reason. I do. I do. So if that's how you did one advertisement for value added higher value products than crude coconut oil. It's PCO. And it's there also. So it's a very long introduction. And I hope that you will realize that you are part of an initiative that we do want to pursue because it's needed, but more important, it is possible. And in our activist strategy, it used to be that when you continue already must be no, we say we follow three principles in building this alliance. The principle of PR. What is I? The principle of initiative. What are you doing it? We're willing to share. We don't claim to represent. The principle of initiative. That's key. The principle of participation. You can come at whatever time you want, and you are not a second class because you come later. You were not at the beginning. And then representation. Then we can claim to represent. So no premature claim to represent. This is the principle of we initiate, we invite you to participate, and we hope that we can continue our discussion to eventually say, because government belongs to us, present what? And we hope we can contribute to what is the voice of the common stakeholders, from farmers to entrepreneurs to consumers to scholars to any citizen that wants to take advantage with gratitude to what Charles called the one gift God, if you are river and nature to the Philippines, the coconut, the tree of life. So welcome to this forum, and I hope you will find the afternoon meaningful, enjoyable, with like-minded people who will be advocates and help strengthen and sharpen the voice ang tinig ng mga pamilyo. Maraming salamat.
Sa inyong good afternoon, everyone. And so happy to see many familiar faces, many new faces, and everybody who's here. Thank you so much. You know how I appreciate your presence and your support. This morning was actually a pre-form set of workshops, and it included very hot discussions on proposed amendments. But then it went beyond just amendments into something more forward-looking, recognizing the important program the government related to coconut authority in the matter of planting, replanting, and nutrient support, fertilization. So we were privileged to have an expert in combination of precision agriculture from Tel Aviv, the state of Israel, who has been actually his company has been famous in ensuring you have been to Israel coming from Jordan or from whatever country or the desert when you enter. The contrast of brown and green is just too much. And the secret explained, many know this, is never under-fertilize, never over-fertilize. Says Igami food. That not have food, you have too much food, you are in trouble. And if you have too much food, you are in double trouble. Because you spend twice. You lose twice. Thank you for that presentation. Well, for starters, the Philippine coconut story is in your hand. And read it in this we can just say very quickly that before there were any Filipinos in the Philippines, there was already the coconut. Ahead of Filipinos in the Philippines by 80 million years. But not only in the Philippines, in the archipelagos of Philippines and Indonesia. And no wonder, up to the present time, these two archipelagos are responsible for more than 50% of all the coconut that is produced on planet Earth. And with India, of course, that would be 60+%. There are 80 other producers. They are very small compared to this area. There was a presentation this morning from the Congress, the Republic of the Philippines. Will help us with their official data. Also convince us that it is not right to be bragging all the time. Okay. It was realistic and humbling, but also encouraging, because it showed us that it is not just a matter of wide hectareage, like we have 3 point something million hectares, but how productive is your plant? Are you averaging 35, 40, or 50? That's 100, not 200, when you could easily do that. India occupies much less hectare than Philippines, and also Malaysia. But they are number one, number three, number two, depending on the time. Not included in this morning's discussion. I have news for you. Vietnam. Vietnam never loses. Not against the French. Not against the Americans. Not against the Chinese before that. Not against the Chinese after that. And they don't want to lose in a battle that has been waged. They're waging, but they are not declaring war. Their 100,000 hectares of coconut land is giving us a run for our life. 100,000 versus 3 million. How was that the rest?
But please don't be surprised. I'm talking of Vietnam. I'm talking about people that knows how to struggle. I am talking of a government that knows how to mobilize its people. That's Vietnam. So I just wanted to add that to this morning's discussion on the comparative production and productivity. Because we live at a time when the rediscovery of coconut is happening worldwide. I say rediscovery because in 1521, Europeans discovered the coconut. They did not discover the Philippines because there was no Philippines yet. But when they landed in the Philippines, and they were flying off from the circumnavigation that lasted more than 24 months, what did they see for themselves? To keep their survivors more than surviving but alive and healthy, it was coconut milk and coconut water. On advice of their captives from Guam and from Sumatra via Malacca, whose name was Enrique, told them, this is it. This is the coconut tree. We call it the tree of life. Now today, I say it is more than the tree of life. We call it the tree of life because just about everything they needed they could get from coconut. It is also the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Be careful. When you look at the coconut tree, knowledge of good, you will see its multiple uses throughout. But you will see also a history of evil. From way, way back, hundreds of years. And you can just see how when in 1642, Governor General Guerra obliged every Filipino to plant 200 coconut trees each. It was for the sake of the servicing the galleon trade. It was very successful administration. The first fossil planting. Because by the 18th century, all of the world, Europe, were looking to the Philippines as the number one supplier of coconut. Not till much later, in the time of Ferdinand Marcos Sr., with the help of the Torre, ECJ, was there another attempt at a massive planting with the use of Mawa, Malaysian and White African combination, to be briefly stopped in 1986 with the discovery of the Aquino government that it was not good for all soils, but only for soils suitable for it. So, you had this Aquino going to the World Bank for a new planting and planting program and a new fertilization program. This was successful, but that was almost half a century ago, I realized. It is time for a new effort, and Mr. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has done that. So we are in this stages of a long history of planting and replanting. But why will you plant and replant? For what purpose? For what purpose? That is what we have to tell the farmers. That is what the farmers are asking. Now, if with the planting and planting program, the new law, because I think Administrator is not going to be defeated in his effort to have it amended. A new law will make it possible that the COCO levy funds will be used for their real purposes. There has to be a distinction between the COCO levy funds and the general funds. The COCO levy funds have purposes according to the different presidential decrees. And no legislature, because these are special funds with special purpose, can annihilate that. They have to be honored. They have to be honored, and that is what we discussed this morning. Now, that might be the end of a massive abuse of the opportunity to have used these funds properly. Why? Because the time had come when a good law, almost a good law, could have been passed, but was vetoed. And so, I'm reporting to you for this discussion that we reviewed that. We reviewed why President Duterte insisted on crippling the PCA and making the COCO Bank disappear from the scene and deliberately rejecting the CIF and instead saying, look at PCA, we will have you, but we will have 15 others with you. And it was going to be a cruel joke. Luckily, now, under the initiative of Admin Budeg, Malacanang has agreed to and assigned a special memorandum circular that would put him at the PCA in control, in a lead position. But he knows, I know, we know, it is not enough. Hence the workshops this morning. Okay. We have many challenges. Very exciting. A global product is with us still. We can easily lose if we fight without the proper knowledge. But first, we must use those coconuts ourselves. Use your coconut. Let us use our own coconut first. Greater domestic utilization will assure us of graduation from mere price taker status to price setting status. I do not say any other way. We have to compete with the world in the usage and utilization of our coconut. And when we have done that, we can now offer the world and the whole planet and the peoples of this earth many things that they need. Not just for their body, but for their soil. Not just with sino, but with coconut water. With every part of the coconut turned into useful and beautiful products this we can do together. This will be the tinig ng mga PDA sa Pilipinas. That was the discussion this morning, and that is my report to you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
So, I would like maybe to share what was transpired in the previous meeting when I was then appointed as the CEO and the administrator of the Philippine Company. This is now my one year and fourth month being the CEO of the or administrator of the PCA. You know the fact that most of you are not really from the agriculture sector, but I am an academician. But I used to learn about more in agriculture because some of the schools that I'm engaged, we have the College of Agriculture, the College of Engineering, and other allied programs regarding to agriculture. We propose because there's already a mandate of the president on its 50th anniversary of the peace deal. So we are now celebrating the second year of the PCA, and I'm turning 50. So that's the good news. That's not true. Well, in the 50th anniversary, the administration of PCA presented the plan about the 100 million massive planting as a mandate also of the president. But just as a mandate, when I seated as the administrator, when I look at the funds, we need to do something. In the GAA appropriation, as you mentioned, while it is the duty of the state to fund for its program, but may I share with you the wisdom. Having a 306 million GAA budget for the massive, you can only plan that it's about 2.7 million siblings. Having 153 million for your fertilizer budget, you can only fertilize 0.08% of the total population of our coconut. That accounts to 345 million all over the country. So what does that mean? You can only fertilize about 3 million coconuts of the 340. Remember the spectacular problem about climate change, climate shock, the drought, and so the pest, and so many others. Plus the 10% of our aging population of coconut. So you are decreasing at least about 25 to 30 million coconuts every year that are not unproductive. If we will not do something, then of course, we will lose our number one commodity, and that is coconut. Because among all the agricultural commodity, number one coconut is for the global market or sa ating export product. So, if you look at the budget, it will not match to our direction towards the 100 million. And to tell you honestly, for this year, we're about to plant 15 million. But what we get in the national expenditure, okay, or in the net, we have only about, let's say, 306 million. So sabi, kailangan tayo magtanim ng 15 million nuts. Kaso, we have only 306 million. Good thing the president intervened and gave additional 1 billion for our planting materials. Next, for the fertilization, good thing the president gave us additional 1.8 billion. This 2.8 billion came from the budget of DA, for your information. So the DA has cut down their budget to 2.8 billion just okay, to embrace the program of the PCA, which is one of the priority projects of the president. The question now is how we can sustain the coconut industry. So here you are. It's about the amendments of the CFI, of the trust fund, or what we call the 11, Public Act 11.5. On the 11.2, course number one is to increase the productivity and income of our coconut farmers. Second is poverty alleviation, education and social equity, and of course, rehabilitation, modernization of the coconut industry, and towards farm productivity. So we need to increase our productivity. At this point in time, the yield is only an average of 40. Why? Because of C9, because of nutrient deficiency of our coconut palm, and of course the pest and diseases there. Scary sometimes because we've been looking at our records and the recurrence of this pest. Hindi po nabubura yung pest dati. Palaging nandyan, hindi nawawala kahit anong season. Now, what shall we do? So the president and the economic managers suggested that we need to amend the 11.5 and three parts. When you say three parts, it's we will totally erase the percentage because the 20% will go to DST and hybridization. The health, the 10% will go to health, the 8% will go to education, and so on and so forth. They are 11 or 15 implementing agencies, okay, that divide the budget of the CFIP. For this year alone, we were given 8 billion. In the past, we were given 5 billion. But to tell you honestly, from the time that we started the CFIP, there is no such thing as about income because of the utilization rate. The utilization rate is only about 26%. Remember, the utilization is only 26%. Meaning, hindi nagagastos lahat yung pera. Isinusoli natin yung pera. Pero pag sinusoli natin yung pera, intact pa rin yung pera na co-collecting fund. Cannot be transferred to any government pieces. So, what was the problem? What is the impact? If you measure the impact, it's not an impressive because of its implementation. It was only last year that we tried to correct the notion that the PCA should take lead or pass on the CFID because you have giving implementing agencies. It is only last year that we had the annual operational plan and to create the direction and the strategic direction of the coconut department. Mind you, example, on the loan itself, for the land bank, for the last 2 years, 4 to 8% utilization. But last year, because of that direction, we were able to shoot up at least 86% to be exact of the utilization rate of the land bank of the Philippines. That means that the farmers engage of getting loans from these banks. Why? We provided them community organizers. The community organizers is the one to capacitate these organizations to cooperatives and help these cooperatives, okay, to give them at least, to help them to provide the requirements for loans such as business plan, feasibility, and so many others. So I think there was a good engagement with the CDA and with the land bank. Next one, last 3 years, never to implement health services. And their health services has a budget of 500 to 800 million. This year, we will be able to implement the medical services for our farm. And we've been to Digos, to Socorro, and farmers are very happy. It's not about just a medical mission, but you have all the equipment together. These are your laboratory equipment to test or these are all for the farmers, and we dispense also medicines. And now farmers are getting 40,000 pesos for their hospital bill on top of the government assistance, outpatient of 5,000 pesos, and another, you can have a GL guarantee letter for your medicines. And these are all available now in the operations of the CFI. Now, on the wisdom of getting money from the CFIPP, the trust fund, number one is on the part of sustainability. So what are the sustainability under the group? Number one is your massive planting. Second is your fertilization. And the third one is drip irrigation. And fourth is about research and innovation. That's the core of the sustainability. Now when we go back to the massive, kaya the massive will be a community-based, starting like about community-based enterprise. The farmers will buy our planting materials. So you're talking about it should really for the farmers, and that's our wisdom. We're getting this bulk of the money, the CFIPP, but it should given to the farmers. So the 15,000 planting materials, or maybe next year, for the 25 to 40 million seedlings that should be cultivated by the farmers. We will give the farmers a budget for them to germinate their seedlings, to have their own nursery, and then there will be a community feeding so that we can really help. That's our intention of getting money from the farmers. The second one is about fertilization. No more importation for salt. Dapat yung salt or any fertilizer should now produced by the local farmers can join again. The salt farmers can be beneficial for this project. And we will be using again of your inorganic fertilizer being produced by our partners. Because in the e-market, we need to use organic. That's the mandate of the market. And of course, I know that you will support the irrigation in the present condition that we are about climate shock. In order for us to improve the productivity and the yield of our coconut, then it's divert to drip irrigation for those areas. Not all areas, but especially we have a very good condition in Mindanao. That's the best place where we can plant more folks water. The areas of Mindanao, not also. But of course, the biggest coconut region still region 48. We have 55 million coconut palms in region 48. So while we are suffering from climate shocks of the pest, of the drought, and of course, we will support this region. So those are the things that we will include under sustainability. And the second core is about the social protection of our farmers. We would like to report to you on the scholarships. We have now 9,800 enrolled coconut scholars. First batch graduated 160. For this year, we have 900 graduates. Not only that, ang gusto natin, we should promote the 3 E's. Enrollment, education, and employment. Employment is very important. It's a non-stop for us na sabihin namin in the new law na hindi lang kailangan paralin ng gobyerno hanggang makapasok ng trabaho. May responsibilidad din dapat namin. Kaya, if they're taking up board programs, it is also the responsibility of the government na pa-reviewin natin sila para pumasok. Bigyan ng pang-review. Huwag nang iiwanan pag nakagraduate. And the second one, in the civil service, kailangan mag-take sila ng exam with the support of the government. So, pag natapos, they can have their own job. And we are looking at the context that every, or maybe about 50% sana, of our coconut farmers ay meron nakapagtapos sa kanilang pamilya. And this will really help to allocate the families of our coconut farmers. And the third core is about community-based enterprise. Meaning, capacity building, we will have our own Coco Academy. No more TEFTA, no more TATI. That's the knowledge of, it's not our knowledge from the PCA, but that's the recommendation of the economic managers. Another one is capacity, I sabi ko it's about capacity building. Farm diversification. These are your intercropping, animal intercropping, still be part on the revision. And then the third one is the shared facilities. So there are 3 core of the amendments. So no more percentage. But another group would say that the sustainability should be given 50% of the budget and 30% on the social protection and 20% for the community community-based enterprise. But sabi namin, better kung wala ng percentage so that flexible, whatever the priorities of the government and the PCA, and that can be supported. So that's the outline of the amendment, and we are here to listen. Remember that the amendment will pass to the scrutiny of the Congress and the Senate. This will be a long debate, but if we come together and look at really the best that we can do for our farmers, not beyond our personal interest, then we will create a more progressive amendment of the RA 11. So I thank everyone for joining us, and it's really hard in the government. It's really hard to listen to many voices, but I hope in the end, and that's my prayer, we will be able to embrace one another and create a better Philippines. Good luck.